It's striking when you pause to consider it. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome, commander of the ancient world, wrote in his private reflections, "We love ourselves more than other people, but for some reason, we care about their opinion more than our own." 2,000 years have passed, and still, his words describe us perfectly. Why is it that a single comment, a raised eyebrow, or a moment of judgment can so easily unsettle us? Why do we hand over our peace to the shifting opinions of others? This habit not only drains our energy, but clouds our judgment. It keeps us from speaking honestly, from acting with courage, from living with a sense of freedom. Yet the Stoics, men and women who lived in the arena of life, both literally and figuratively, left us a guide to escape this trap. Their teachings are not about arrogance or indifference, but about discipline, clarity, and staying anchored in what truly matters, our values. What follows is not theory, but practice. Wisdom tested by figures like Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, Musonius Rufus, and Cato the Younger. Let us begin. Number 1. Challenge conventions. Few embodied this more vividly than Diogenes the Cynic. He rejected the false weight of public opinion and tested himself against society's expectations every day. He begged before statues to train his endurance to rejection. When mocked for walking backward into a theater, he calmly replied, "Yes, I walk backwards into the theater, but you walk backwards through life." And perhaps the most famous story, as he lay sunbathing, Alexander the Great himself approached and asked, "Is there anything I can do for you?" Diogenes answered, "Yes. Stop blocking my sun." His lesson is simple, but profound. Most conventions are illusions. When you stop being ruled by them, you begin to see life more clearly. Many of the rules we follow in society are not laws of nature, but customs, arbitrary expectations that we adopt without question. When we obey them blindly, we give away our freedom. Diogenes exposed this by testing these conventions and showing how hollow they were. You don't need to live in a barrel to do the same. It begins with a simple question. What invisible rules am I following? Who told me I cannot wear this, say that, or live in this way? Why does the thought of being different unsettle me? Cato the Younger, remembered as one of the most principled Stoics in public life, took a similar approach. While senators wore white, he chose dark clothing. He walked barefoot and bareheaded. Plutarch notes that Cato did this deliberately, to accustom himself to being judged, to grow free from the sting of opinion. The first step in caring less about what others think is to examine the very standards by which they judge you. But this isn't about rebelling for rebellion's sake, nor about pretending to be indifferent while secretly chasing approval. It's about conducting an honest audit of the expectations society has handed you. Are these rules just? Are they meaningful? Do they align with your values? Often, our choices are guided less by reason and more by fear of judgment. You can see this when discomfort arises. If wearing something different, speaking openly, or simply saying no fills you with unease, it may be a sign of an invisible rule operating in the background. Notice it. Question it. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." The Stoic answer is clear. If something is right and true, do it, regardless of how unpopular it may be. Like Diogenes and Cato, the goal is not rebellion, but freedom, the freedom to live by principle rather than by fashion, to measure yourself by truth rather than applause. Real strength is not found in resisting others, but in quietly living what you know to be right, even when it runs against the crowd. Real freedom is the ability to face judgment and continue anyway, steady, anchored in your purpose. You build this strength not through dramatic gestures, but through small, consistent acts that go against social pressure. Whether it's voicing an unpopular truth or making a lifestyle choice that feels authentic but unconventional, Each act strengthens your inner fortress. With practice, you become less fragile, less reactive, and more self-possessed. And in that quiet sovereignty, you find a kind of unshakable peace. Number 2, nobody is thinking about you. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, once struggled deeply with the fear of embarrassment. His teacher Crates decided to help him. He handed Zeno a pot of lentil soup and told him to carry it through a crowded marketplace. Then, without warning, Crates struck the pot, spilling the soup all over Zeno's clothes. Zeno froze with shame. Crates simply smiled and said, "Look around. No one cares." And it was true. The crowd kept moving. Everyone had their own concerns, their own burdens. This is a liberating truth. We are not the center of the universe. People are not watching us nearly as closely as we imagine. Most are absorbed in their own inner world, their worries, their ambitions, their fears. As Marcus Aurelius observed, most of what occupies us is transient, quickly forgotten. Think of all the people who once praised you, who now are dust and ashes. Think of all the people you wanted so badly to impress. Who are they now? Even emperors were judged, and even their judges are now forgotten. The monuments of the past fade, names carved in stone slowly weather away. When you see this clearly, it becomes almost tragic to let fleeting, often unqualified opinions dictate the course of your life. The spotlight you fear is an illusion. The crowd is looking elsewhere, and in that realization, you are free. The opinions we fear, often from people whose names we may never know, take up space in our minds. They pull us off course, clouding our intentions with imagined judgment. Think for a moment. How many times have you held back your words, restrained your creativity, or silenced your instincts because you imagined someone might laugh, dismiss, or disapprove? And now, how many of those people can you even name? Do their opinions still matter? The judgments you feared were temporary. The cost of your hesitation was lasting. We often picture ourselves under a spotlight, exposed and examined. But what feels like a spotlight is really just a flickering beam, shifting constantly between distractions. You were never the focus. At best, you are a passing detail in someone else's crowded mind. If you pause and look closely, you'll see that very few are truly watching. Their glances are brief. Their thoughts are elsewhere. Most people are absorbed in their own anxieties, rehearsing their own past conversations, nursing their own wounds. Their inner noise drowns out almost everything outside themselves. You are not a performer on their stage. You are not a character in their story. You are a human being, free to grow, to falter, to begin again, without needing the approval of an audience that barely exists. Every moment spent hesitating out of fear is a moment lost to imaginary critics who live more vividly in your mind than in reality. Consider how much creativity has been silenced, how many dreams deferred, simply because of a few seconds of imagined disapproval. Side glances, whispers, or laughter that fade almost as quickly as they appear. Those fears are shadows, not truths, projections, not reality. So ask yourself, what would I do if no one were watching? How would I speak? How would I act? How would I move through the world? That answer, that unfiltered essence, is your truth. And the deeper reality is this: very few are watching. The world is barely paying attention. People scroll, skim, forget, misinterpret. The weight you feel is not theirs. It is your own. And once you set it down, you are free. People move on. Even those who criticize you today will forget their words tomorrow. What feels sharp in the moment fades quickly, like footprints in sand erased by the tide. Their judgment only lasts if you carry it with you, keeping it alive in your own mind. This recognition is freedom. Freedom to try, to fail, to experiment, to act. To let your story unfold in honest strokes instead of polished performances. To let your words carry sincerity rather than ornament. to let your ambition expand instead of contract, to let your courage grow roots strong enough to hold you steady, even when opinion swirls around you. You are not on trial. You are living. You are not here to audition for someone else's approval, but to walk the path of virtue, to grow into your potential, to embody purpose, and purpose rarely arrives with applause. At first, it is often questioned, doubted, even mocked. Yet these very moments are the fire that tempers you. Life is too brief to remain in the cage of imagined scrutiny. Every time you edit yourself for the crowd, you lose a piece of who you are. No applause is worth the cost of your soul. No approval is worth the compromise of your values. The more you live your truth, the more the towering opinions of others shrink. They become faint murmurs, distant and unimportant. It is far better to endure criticism while being true than to live safely under the weight of someone else's indifference. Conformity erodes the self. Authenticity cultivates peace. So live boldly. Let others watch while you create. Let them whisper while you build. Let them laugh while you rise. Let them misunderstand while you remain faithful to your path. This is how the Stoic moves forward, not untouched by noise, but unmoved by it. With purpose, with clarity, with quiet strength. Let your life be a quiet resistance against conformity and fear. Let your story testify to the freedom found not in being liked, but in being true. That is your strength. That is your freedom. That is your way. And it is yours alone to walk. Number 3, embrace what makes you unique. In an age when Rome prized conformity, Agrippinus stood apart. He declined invitations to Nero's feast, refused to flatter the emperor, and turned away from luxury. When asked why he would risk standing out, he replied, "I am the red thread in the tunic." It is a striking image. Each of us is a thread in the fabric of life, woven with a color and texture that no other carries. Our existence is singular, shaped by a one-time blend of heritage, struggle, and spirit. We are not copies. We are not repetitions. We are once in history beings. Yet how often do we dull our colors just to blend in? We lower our voices, soften our edges, cover our vibrancy, all in pursuit of acceptance. We shrink, fearing that difference makes us unworthy. But Stoicism reminds us, we are not meant to erase our individuality, but to refine and express it through virtue. True excellence is not conformity, but authenticity rooted in character. Individuality without virtue is only eccentricity, but individuality guided by wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance becomes a light that strengthens others. It gives them permission to be themselves as well. If your nature is quiet, then be quietly powerful, a steady flame that shines without needing wind. If your nature is bold, then live boldly, not as a performance, but as an offering. Authenticity is not rebellion. It is a return to the truth of who you are. It is a homecoming to the truth of who you were always meant to be. When we mute ourselves to meet expectations, we trade depth for decoration. We exchange substance for surface. What matters is not difference for its own sake, but whether our uniqueness is rooted in principle, whether it reflects virtue, not vanity, whether we walk our own path because it is right, not because it is loud. This often means choosing discomfort over dissonance, remaining true to yourself even when the world does not understand. True courage is not always dramatic. More often, it is quiet, steady, and unshaken. It is choosing alignment over applause. Seneca reminds us, it is the power of the mind to be unconquerable. In those words lies a shield for anyone burdened by judgment or the pressure to conform. What makes you different may, in fact, be your greatest strength. It is not something to be hidden, apologized for, or reshaped for approval. It is the lever through which your destiny turns, the distinct edge that nourishes a world too often dulled by sameness. Your difference may be the very signature of your calling. a whisper from the universe. You were not made to follow, but to forge. To silence that voice is to abandon the essence of who you are. You do not need to be like anyone else to live well. The Stoics did not teach imitation. They taught integrity. And integrity means aligning with your true nature, even if it means walking alone. You need only to be yourself, with clarity, with courage, and with the discipline to remain steady when others do not see you fully. This requires strength. It requires stillness. It requires returning again and again to your center no matter who misunderstands you. Your task is not to mirror the crowd, but to become a mirror, showing others what courage looks like in its most personal form. A life lived with virtue and authenticity becomes a quiet beacon, giving others permission to do the same. So stand tall in your red thread. It was never meant to blend in, never meant to be invisible. It was meant to lead the eye, to guide the soul, to remind the world that authenticity is strength, and that living truthfully, even at the cost of comfort or approval, is among the most stoic acts of all. It is not indifference, it is commitment. It is not rebellion, it is resolution, and it is yours to practice daily, in silence, in struggle, and in strength. Number 4, don't let others hold you back. Florence Nightingale once heard a voice ask her, "Will you let what other people think hold you back from my service?" For years she did. Her family disapproved of her aspirations. Nursing was not considered fitting for a woman of her class. Yet eventually she broke with convention. She accepted the cost of disapproval. She followed her calling, and in doing so, she changed the world. So ask yourself, what chains are holding you back? Whose approval do you fear losing? Seneca reminds us, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." Don't waste your life trying to appease those who do not understand your mission. Their misunderstanding of your vision is not your failure. It is only a reflection of their limits. Some people are not meant to see what you see. Their sight is blurred by fear, comfort, convention, or envy. That is their burden, not yours. Your task is not to persuade the uninterested or prove yourself to the doubtful. Your task is to remain faithful to the spark within you, to honor it with your energy, your time, and your integrity. Every moment spent explaining yourself to those determined not to understand is time stolen from your calling. Every argument with shadows drains the light you could bring to life. You were not born to fulfill their checklist. You were born to fulfill your potential. That potential does not need permission. It needs devotion, not approval, but attention, a relentless return to purpose. The Stoics called this eupatheia, the calm, rational joy of living in harmony with your nature, not someone else's definition of success, not borrowed dreams, not the standards of your peers, but your nature, your unique blend of character, conscience, and calling that belongs to you alone. Eupatheia is not about elation or applause. It is the steady light within, the quiet clarity that comes when your life is in alignment. It is a joy that does not depend on outcomes or opinions, but rests securely in truth. A peace not born of validation, but of integrity. Integrity is the harmony of values, actions, and identity. It is the rare strength of meeting your own gaze in the mirror without flinching. It is the calm breath at day's end, knowing you acted not to impress, but to live in accordance with what is real. But such joy cannot be found while tethered to the shifting expectations of others. If your life is lived on the leash of approval, your steps will always be constrained. The opinions of others change with the wind. What pleases them today may offend them tomorrow. Their values may be shallow, conflicted, or shaped by fear. Many do not live from self-mastery. They are carried by trends, ruled by ego, unsettled by insecurity. And if you anchor your worth to their view of you, your life will be restless, never still, never whole. A tree cannot grow deep roots if it keeps shifting to follow the wind. In the same way, your soul cannot grow strong if you bend continually for approval. Strength requires stillness. Purpose requires perseverance. To become who you are meant to be, you must know who you are and be willing to endure misunderstanding. True joy, Stoic joy, begins when your identity is no longer tied to the crowd, but rooted firmly in your own moral compass. Not the compass handed to you by an unhealed parent, nor by a culture obsessed with comparison, nor by friends whose care is conditional, but your compass, the one etched by truth, refined through experience. A compass that does not demand perfection, but presence. One that does not chase trends, but quietly follows what is true. And in following your compass, you may not walk the straightest path, but you walk the truest one. From that place, you are free. Free from the distortion of expectations, free from the prison of false roles and hollow praise. From that place, you can serve as only you were meant to, authentically, quietly, and with courage. This is the final key. Your mission was never only about you. It is about what your presence gives to the world when you show up undiluted. What you build with your gifts and your steady persistence. What you mend in others by first mending yourself. What you dare to attempt that others may not even voice aloud. When you release the need to be understood, you create space for something greater, to be useful, to be whole, to be at peace. You no longer perform for the spotlight. You become the light. You stop searching for clarity in the eyes of others and begin shaping it within. The path of self-trust is rarely crowded, but it is always worth it. For in walking it long enough, you discover you never needed the crowd at all. You only needed the courage to begin, and the wisdom to see that alignment with purpose is never true solitude. Number 5. Focus on what you control. Epictetus began his discourses with a simple division. Some things are up to us, and some are not. Our thoughts, our choices, our beliefs, these are ours. The opinions of others, how they respond to us, whether they understand us, these are not. When we tie our happiness to likes, applause, or approval, we hand our peace to strangers. Our balance rises and falls with their turbulence. Algorithms begin to dictate our worth. Numbers define our contribution. Whispers of praise or criticism steer our direction. Marcus Aurelius put it plainly. Ambition means tying your well-being to what others say or do. Sanity means tying it to your own actions. The sane, the Stoic, grounds their identity in what is fully theirs, their intent, their effort, their habits. They do not cling to praise like a raft in rough waters. Instead, they build a foundation inward where no storm can reach. A wise person anchors worth in effort, not recognition. Like a soldier who trains for the battle, not the crowd. Like a writer who refines their words for truth, not applause. Like an artist who paints for meaning, not markets. They create because it is in their nature, not because the world demands it. Their satisfaction lies in the process itself, in the steady craft of doing something well, in the rhythm of discipline, even and especially when no one is watching. They take joy, not in recognition, but in consistency. They find value in excellence that is unseen, carried quietly within like a steady flame. It is not measured by how many witness it, but by how fully it is executed. Success is not in numbers, but in the honesty of effort. They do not ask, was it well received? They ask, was it well done? Was it right? Was it necessary? Their self-worth is built from within, resilient and steady, not reactive to the applause or disapproval of others. Peace comes from effort, not permission, and it is not passive. It is quiet, firm, and enduring. This is what the Stoics meant by the autonomy of the soul. Not indifference to opinion, but freedom from dependence on it. You are not strong because others do not speak. You are free because you no longer need their voice to define you. Let this be your model. Build confidence on solid ground, the structure of your own effort, intention, and alignment with what is right. Let your values carry more weight than approval. Let integrity outlast applause. Let the meaning of your actions endure beyond how they are received. Do your part. Release the rest. Let others gossip. Let them misinterpret. That is their burden, not yours. Let them underestimate you while you quietly fulfill your purpose. Let their noise fade while your truth remains steady. Your task is simple. Show up, give your best, and keep your soul intact. That is enough. That is everything. You are not responsible for how your truth is received, only that it is delivered with honesty and care. You are not required to be understood by all, only to remain faithful to the mission within you. In a world full of noise, consistency and integrity becomes a signal. In a world obsessed with image, quiet virtue is revolutionary. This is the respect that cannot be taken away, because it is cultivated from within. Not a performance, not a projection, but a deep, unshakable knowing. It is not borrowed from public praise. It is not granted through flattery. It does not depend on timing or trends. True strength is built slowly, quietly, in the early mornings when no one is watching, in the moments when doing the right thing costs more than comfort allows, in the silent choices that shape character day by day, stoically. Not for applause, but for alignment. Not to impress, but to embody. Not to rise above others, but to rise within yourself. That is the real reward. Living well, living rightly, and knowing it is its own quiet triumph. Number 6. Take a closer look. When someone criticizes you, pause and ask, who is this person? What are their values? Would I trade places with them? Do I respect how they live, how they treat others, how they handle adversity? Would I seek their counsel in a crisis? Would I want their mindset? Marcus Aurelius advised, when someone does you wrong, ask, what kind of person is this? Not with contempt, but with curiosity and clarity. Examine the source. Does their life reflect wisdom, self-mastery, virtue, or is it shadowed by ego, fear, or insecurity? Too often we absorb criticism blindly, treating every word as truth, every glance as judgment. But if you wouldn't trust someone with your finances, your health, or your safety, why let them dictate your self-image? Not all feedback is forged in wisdom. Some comes from envy, projection, or confusion. The weight you give another's voice should be earned, not automatic. It should arise from respect, not reflex. A lion does not lose sleep over the opinions of sheep, and a wise Stoic does not surrender identity to someone they do not admire. This is not indifference, it is intelligent discernment. A clear sense of self depends on careful boundaries, not only of time and energy, but of influence. Your inner citadel, your peace, focus, and vision must be protected. Let no one walk in with muddy feet, lest you spend your energy cleaning up their mess instead of building your purpose. Discernment is not cruelty, it is clarity. It draws the line between openness and being overwhelmed. This is not arrogance, it is self-respect, cultivated through reflection and guarded by wisdom. It is the quiet strength to say, not every voice deserves an audience in my mind. Your mind is sacred ground, not a public forum. You are its gatekeeper, not its servant. Some opinions are subtle snares disguised as guidance. Others are rooted in fear, envy, or the desire to control. Many are simply noise, loud but empty. Learn whose voice is worth listening to and why. Observe their life, their discipline, their compassion, their courage. Do they embody the values you aim to cultivate? Have they built something enduring from hardship? Do they speak from wounds or from wisdom? If the answer offers nothing of value, move on without resentment. Step over it as you would a rock in your path. Let wisdom in. Let noise out. Let criticism from the wise refine you, sharpen you like a blade. Let judgment from the unwise pass through like wind through trees, moving leaves but never shaking roots. You cannot stop people from speaking. Words will fly through the air like arrows, some precise, some erratic, some aimed at you, others flung carelessly. You cannot control the launch, but you can choose whether they pierce your skin or fall harmlessly at your feet. That is your power. That is your boundary. You can build armor, not the kind that hardens you into bitterness, but the kind that strengthens you in wisdom. Armor made not of silence, but of selective hearing, not of detachment, but of disciplined interpretation. In every encounter, you have a choice. Which words will you carry home, and which will you release? Words from truth, or words from someone else's chaos? You decide which words you hang on your wall as lessons, and which you let fall to the floor as noise. You do not have to accept every sentence that reaches your ears as truth. Not every opinion deserves a place in your story. This is one of the highest Stoic arts, to sort with reason, to filter with wisdom, to respond from strength rather than react from insecurity. The more you practice, the less vulnerable you become to emotional turbulence. Opinions become like clouds, passing shapes, not permanent truths. This is the essence of Stoic discernment, to step back, observe the source, and ask, does this deserve to shape me? Does it align with my values, or is it simply noise dressed as importance? Most of the time, what seems urgent is merely loud. What appears powerful is often only persistent. So we learn to evaluate with calm, not react with chaos. We become selective, not to isolate ourselves, but to elevate the quality of what we allow into our minds. Just as we would not consume food handed to us by a stranger without question, we should not absorb every opinion without reflection. This is the Stoic way, not to silence the world, but to rise above its clamor with discernment and dignity. The goal is not deafness, but depth, not muting every voice, but listening with purpose. Freedom is not found in withdrawing from the noise. It is found in no longer needing it to define you. You owe no one access to your inner life. You are the gatekeeper. You determine what stays and what passes through. This is mastery over your internal climate, regardless of the storms outside. In that mastery, you become both calm and courageous. You hear the roar and do not flinch. You feel the pull and remain unmoved. You remember who you are, even as the crowd forgets itself. It is remembering that you alone hold the doors to your inner life. You decide who enters. This is your sacred responsibility and your greatest source of peace. The world may knock, shout, plead for entry, but you are not compelled to open the door. You are not a prisoner of opinion. You are not a servant of popularity. You are the steward of your soul. This is your shield, forged in reason, tempered by virtue, carried with quiet strength. It protects without isolating. It defends without retaliating. It allows you to move through noise, confusion, and contradiction without losing yourself. It is invisible armor that lets you breathe deeply in chaos and act deliberately amid disorder. This is not just freedom. It is victory. It is sovereignty. It is the reward of living by principle, not performance. Number 7, zoom out. In Meditations, Marcus repeatedly zooms out. He visualizes Earth from above. He sees the brevity of human life, the insignificance of fame, the futility of worrying about legacy. Alexander the Great and his mule driver are brought to the same place by death. He writes, "This cosmic perspective diminishes the sting of judgment. In 100 years, will it matter what your critics said? In 10? Pulling back the camera softens the intensity of the moment. Your embarrassment is a drop in a cosmic ocean, an infinite decimal, fleeting and quickly forgotten. So too is your fear of being misunderstood. Up close, it feels enormous, but from the wider perspective of a lifetime or a century, it is laughably small. What feels humiliating today is likely irrelevant tomorrow, invisible in the grand flow of time. This shift in perspective is one of Stoicism's greatest gifts. When you truly zoom out, the tight grip of the moment loosens. The sting of disapproval, the awkward stumble, the pause that seemed eternal, they blur, dissolve, and lose their edge. What once felt like failure is revealed as a speck in the fabric of time. You begin to see that the people whose opinions once haunted you are as fleeting as their judgments. Their faces fade, their words scatter. Their authority over your sense of self diminishes with distance. Live for the eternal, not for applause. Aim for substance over sparkle. Care for your character, not the curated image, not the filtered persona, but the raw, consistent self you meet in solitude. Applause is fickle. Image is a mirage. But character endures. It remains when no one is watching. It is the foundation that holds even when no spotlight shines. The world may not hand you trophies for integrity, but within, you carry the profound weight and quiet warmth of having lived truly. When you zoom out, opinions that once loomed large shrink into faint silhouettes, ghosts of moments that never truly mattered. They are no longer mountains, but distant clouds drifting across a vast sky. Ephemeral, shifting, insubstantial. They diminish under the long lens of time and perspective. And then it becomes clear. What truly matters was never their judgment, but your response. Not how sharp or loud their voices were, but how still, composed, and anchored you remained. Not what they misunderstood, but what you had the wisdom and courage to understand about yourself. Let perspective be your liberator. Let it dissolve the illusion that any single comment, fleeting moment, or social misstep defines your worth. No stumble is the sum of who you are. You are not the reaction you provoked. You are not the label someone passed on you in passing. You are not a version of yourself frozen in someone else's snapshot. You are a soul navigating the vastness of existence, evolving, expanding, carrying a purpose far greater than any temporary opinion. Rise above the noise, the echo, the static of momentary disapproval. Let the roar of judgment become background hum. Remember how brief every onlooker's attention truly is, how quickly they shift focus, how fast their certainty fades, how swiftly today becomes yesterday, and the spark of gossip turns to ash. With that remembrance, reclaim your power, not in defiance, not in arrogance, but in serene, grounded wisdom. You were never made to live in a box built from borrowed expectations. You were made to walk freely with purpose that stretches beyond applause and outlasts the fleeting gaze. You were made not to shrink to fit others' narratives, but to expand in alignment with your own. That is the freedom of the zoomed-out soul. That is the power of seeing with clarity. Number 8. See people's opinions for what they really are. Marcus called public praise the clapping of tongues. Poetic, yes, but precise. Praise is noise, a passing vibration, a fleeting echo of collective conditioning. It is not nourishment. It is not substance. It is air dressed as meaning. Jerry Seinfeld, a student of Stoic thought in his own way, put it bluntly. Applause is just people smashing their hands together. Mechanical, reflexive, rarely thoughtful. This is not to reject kindness or despise appreciation. It is a caution. Never build your identity upon it. Never confuse applause for alignment or attention for achievement. See things as they truly are. Likes are taps from distracted fingers, fleeting and impulsive. Awards are just metal and wood, shaped by committees. Viral fame is a statistical accident masquerading as validation. These are echoes, not essence. Shadows, not substance. They are byproducts of the work, not proof of its worth. Strip away the illusion. This is the essence of Stoic perception. Marcus urged, remove the legend that encrusts it. Do not be fooled by the myth people build around success or recognition. Do not trust the aura that clings to prestige or the glow cast by popularity. Remove the metaphor, the myth, the marketing. What remains? What is the unpolished truth beneath the praise? This is the Stoic discipline of perception. It is the practice of resisting the temptation to be seduced by symbols. A standing ovation does not confirm the soul of the work. A spotlight does not sanctify the act. A trending post does not indicate truth. The Stoic mind sees through the veneer. It observes the scaffolding of narrative and discards it, seeking only the bedrock beneath. It asks, what was done? Why was it done? Did it serve virtue? When you remove the glitter, cast aside the performance, and peel away the coating of expectation, what remains is raw and unshakably real. Your craft, your purpose, your consistency, your intention, your integrity. That is your foundation, the stone upon which all else must be built. That is your quiet power, the strength that does not beg to be seen, but cannot be ignored. It is your anchor in a storm of distraction, a point of clarity when the world bombards you with comparison and noise. That is your compass when novelty tempts you to abandon what matters most, for what only appears valuable. Let that be your guide. Not the applause, not the ratings, not the trends, not the nod of the crowd, but the deep, unwavering truth that lives in the effort you bring, the meaning you breathe into your actions, the value you create in solitude, and the principles you uphold when no one else is watching. That is what endures when applause fades. That is what builds peace in a world that profits from anxiety. That is what allows you to stand still with conviction while the world spins in search of validation. It is what gives you the courage to persist, not because you are celebrated, but because you are honest. The discipline to remain loyal to what is right, to what is real, is your greatest form of wealth. In that fidelity to your values, you become rooted. In that rootedness, you become unshakable. Number 9. Identify the opinions that actually matter. Caring what everyone thinks is foolish. Caring what no one thinks is dangerous. The Stoic path lies between. Learn to discern whose opinion is worth your attention and why. Your life cannot be lived according to every voice that calls for it, nor can it be entirely deaf to feedback. The key is listening with discernment, not dependence. Marcus Aurelius cherished mentors like Antoninus Pius and Junius Rusticus, men whose wisdom and character merited his attention. Let their example guide you. Attend to voices that illuminate, strengthen, and align with virtue. Let the rest pass like wind through leaves. He welcomed feedback not because he needed approval, but because he respected character. The wisdom, restraint, and virtue of certain individuals give weight to their words. Seneca advised keeping a wise example always in mind, a Cato, a Socrates, a Zeno, someone to emulate, someone who serves as an internal compass. These are not just role models, but filters. Through them, you can ask, would this person give this same advice? Would they agree with this judgment? When you receive feedback, ask, is this person virtuous, experienced, wise? Do they walk with integrity? Are their words rooted in principle or pettiness? Do they elevate the conversation or merely echo the crowd? Are they offering insight or projecting their own fears and limitations? If the answer is yes, consider it deeply. Such voices refine, sharpen, and guide. If no, discard it without resentment or reaction. Not all judgment is poison. Some is a mirror, but ensure the mirror is clean. And remember, Even a clean mirror reflects only what is already present. Your task is not to please the reflection, but to learn and grow from it. The wise do not isolate themselves from all critique, but neither do they open the gates to every passing opinion. They build an inner advisory council composed of the just, the principled, the experienced. Only these voices echo in the chambers of self-reflection. Others may shout, but they are not heard. Others may judge, but they are not obeyed. That is the Stoic way. Not silence, but selection. Not indifference, but insight. Not approval-seeking, but value-based listening. Let the voice that guides you be the one that calls you higher, not the one that simply calls louder. Number 10. Don't chase respect. Earn it. Reputation is not in our control, but character is. As Cato once said, we cannot guarantee success, but we can do something better. Deserve it. That line distills the essence of Stoicism into living practice. Focus not on what you receive, but on who you become. Reputation may open doors, but it is character that determines whether you belong in the room. You may never be widely admired, but you can be quietly worthy of admiration, consistently without seeking recognition. You may never be loved by all, but you can love your own conduct. Self-respect earned through alignment, not applause, is the only kind that endures through silence and seasons. Respect, when chased, often slips away. It becomes a mirage. The closer you pursue it, the farther it drifts, always just beyond reach. Its nature is fickle, dependent on the mood of others, the moment, or the angle of perception. But when you live with discipline, justice, courage, and wisdom, when you act not for recognition, but from principle, respect finds you. It finds you in unexpected places. A quiet nod across a room, the stillness after speaking truth, the subtle gravity of a reputation earned, not announced. It becomes something you radiate naturally, not demand. Let your actions speak louder than your words. Not your speech, not your performance, but the way you carry yourself when no one is watching. Let the texture of your daily life, the hard choices made in silence, and the integrity upheld in discomfort speak volumes. Let the quality of your work, the consistency of your values, and the humility of your walk communicate what words cannot. Earn esteem with the patience of cultivating a garden, but never require it. For if it is required, it is no longer esteem. It becomes a transaction. It is no longer admiration. It is compliance. Stoic worth is not transactional. It is intrinsic. It is the steady voice inside that says, I did what was right. I stayed the course. I remained whole. Build a life that doesn't seek attention, yet cannot be overlooked. Be the one who needs no stage to influence, no spotlight to radiate. Be worthy in silence, for the world is loud, and quiet excellence is rare and unforgettable. Be upright in solitude, because virtue tested in isolation is the most genuine. Be noble in obscurity, for greatness grown in the dark can withstand any glare. Let your virtue shine, even if no eye ever sees it, for that is the Stoic's reward, not the echo of applause, but the quiet resonance of integrity within a soul at peace. Not the roar of the crowd, but the steady satisfaction of a life well lived, a standard upheld, and a conscience unburdened. Number 11. Exposure therapy. Donald Robertson, a leading expert on Stoicism and cognitive behavioral therapy, notes that Stoic practices mirror modern psychological techniques, chief among them exposure. Growth comes not from avoiding discomfort, but from approaching it, embracing the awkward, the embarrassing, the uncertain, and emerging stronger. Zeno once carried a broken pot of lentils through a crowded marketplace, an act that filled him with dread. His teacher, Crates, designed this intentionally to expose him to judgment, revealing that humiliation is survivable. Cato, too, would wear dark robes when senators wore white, walk barefoot, spearheaded among the elite. These were not performances for attention. They were deliberate exercises in resilience, designed so that judgment would lose its hold on the soul. Just as the body strengthens under resistance, the soul strengthens under exposure. Deliberately place yourself in situations that cultivate resilience. Speak in public even if your voice shakes. Publish your work even if it's imperfect. Share your beliefs even when they may be misunderstood. Be seen failing. Be seen trying. Be seen learning aloud. Growth does not occur in the shadows. You evolve by standing in the light, by stepping into visibility and discovering, often to your surprise, that it does not harm you. Fear of judgment diminishes when confronted. Imagined horrors give way to manageable discomfort and eventually to nothing at all. The monster in the closet was always smaller than the story in your head. Start small, but start with intention. Seek moments that stretch you, that press against the edge of discomfort. Wear the garment you fear will draw judgment. Speak the sentence you've held back. Sit in the silence that follows. This is how the soul learns to stand steady when eyes are upon it. This is how freedom is earned, not by avoiding judgment, but by outgrowing the need to fear it entirely. Number 12. Ask yourself, when you notice yourself weighed down by another's opinion, pause. Ask, is this person wise? Do they live with virtue? Would I trade places with them? Is this within my control? Will it matter in 5 years? If the answer is no, release it. The Stoic path is not indifference. It is clarity. It is courage. It is integrity. It is the quiet, unshakable confidence that arises from living according to your own values, not those imposed by others. Stop renting space in your mind to strangers. Free yourself. Walk your path. Earn your own respect. And let that, steadfast and sufficient, be enough.